This is Mr. Eugene, and today we're examining a warning that's been sitting in plain sight for over 400 years. A warning most men hear and ignore completely until they've already paid the price for that ignorance. Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind, and therefore is winged Cupid painted blind. Shakespeare wrote those words in A Midsummer Night's Dream, and like most wisdom passed down through literature, I'm sure some teacher read them to me once while I was staring at some girl across the classroom, completely missing the point. Because in those words lies a fundamental truth about attraction that men desperately need to understand before it destroys them. What you're attracted to in a woman is not what's actually there. It's what you're projecting onto her. You're falling in love with your own fantasy dressed up in her appearance. And the gap between that fantasy and reality is where relationships go to die. This is not abstract philosophy. This is practical warning that could save you months or years of your life and protect you from entangling yourself with women whose actual character is incompatible with the qualities you've imagined they possess. Today we're examining how projection works, why men are particularly vulnerable to it, how to recognize when you're projecting rather than observing reality, and what happened when I ignored every warning sign because I was too attracted to see clearly. This is uncomfortable, but it's true. And understanding it before you make catastrophic decisions is the difference between wasting months recovering from a toxic situation and protecting yourself before you're in it. Stay with me. Hashtag the post-divorce trap, proving you're still valuable. Let me start with context because the story I'm going to tell you happened in a specific frame that made me more vulnerable than I would have been otherwise. I had just come out of divorce. The ink wasn't completely dry on the papers, and like most divorced men, I was dealing with something I didn't fully understand at the time, the desperate need to prove I was still a man, still valuable, still attractive. Divorce does something to men's egos that's hard to describe unless you've been through it. You feel rejected at the most fundamental level. Someone who once chose you decided you weren't enough, and that feeling that you failed, that you're inadequate, that you're not the man you thought you were, sits like a weight. The instinct is to prove it wrong immediately, to get back out there, to show her, show yourself, show everyone that you're still got it, that you can still attract women, that the divorce was just a setback, not evidence of fundamental inadequacy. This is ego-driven compensatory behavior, and it makes you blind because you're not entering the dating market from a position of genuine choice. You're entering it from a position of need. You need validation. You need evidence that you're still valuable. You need someone to want you to counteract the feeling of being unwanted. And when you need something that badly, you'll see it where it doesn't exist. You'll project qualities onto women who trigger your attraction because you want to believe those qualities are there. Because believing they're there justifies pursuing them, which gives you the validation you're seeking. This is the setup for projection, and I walk directly into it. Hashtag the archetype. When she triggers something from your past, I got on the dating apps like every divorced man does. And I was shocked. Millions of profiles, women claiming to want exactly what I had to offer, opportunities everywhere. I dated casually, a lot of women over those first couple years. But there was one profile I kept seeing, one woman who triggered something in me that I didn't fully understand. She wasn't a classic beauty, but she was extremely attractive to me specifically. And looking back, I can identify why. She looked like an archetype from my youth. She had this Stevie Nicks, Joni Mitchell aesthetic, the 1970s bohemian woman who was artistic, free-spirited, mysterious. And if you grew up in that era, those were the cultural icons of female attractiveness. They represented something aspirational, something romantic, something fundamentally different from ordinary women. I was attracted to what she represented symbolically, not to who she actually was. For a couple years, I'd see her profile occasionally when I was browsing apps. I'd send messages, no response. I kept looking, because that pull, that sense that she embodied something I wanted, was strong enough that I kept seeking her out. Eventually, she responded. We went on a date, and it went exceptionally well, better than I expected. The conversation flowed, the attraction was mutual, the sexual chemistry was immediate and intense, and I could feel myself being drawn in ways that didn't make rational sense. I was attracted to her. We seemed to have so much in common. Everything aligned perfectly. But looking back with clarity, I can see what was actually happening. I was being incredibly agreeable. I was projecting qualities onto her. Depth, intelligence, compatibility, shared values, whether she actually possessed them or not. I was creating a narrative about who she was based on what I wanted her to be, rather than on what she was actually showing me. This is projection, and it's invisible when you're in it. Hashtag the red flags I ignored because I didn't want to see them. The relationship progressed quickly. The sex was intense. She was eager, enthusiastic, had what seemed like a male appetite for physical intimacy. I was in heaven. This felt like everything I wanted. A woman who was beautiful, intelligent, sexually compatible, and interested in building something with me. And then the red flags started appearing, small at first, easy to explain away. Hashtag red flag 1, the boundary about phone calls early on. I needed to call her to ask about a restaurant because the one I was picking food up from was out of what we wanted. She was irritated immediately. And then she gave me this speech. One of my boundaries is I don't like when a man calls me right before a date. I'm always running late, I'm trying to get ready, and it stresses me out. Don't call me before we get together. I was put off slightly, because in my mind, boundaries are for big things, moral issues, ethical lines, serious violations. Not calling before a date seemed like a preference, not a boundary. But I let it go. I made an excuse, she's just particular, she values her preparation time, whatever. What I should have recognized, this was a control mechanism disguised as a boundary. And her inability to handle a minor inconvenience without making it a lecture was a sign of someone who was going to weaponize language to control my behavior. Hashtag red flag 2, the picture incident a few weeks later, we're walking through trails near my property. She's looking at birds with binoculars. I pull out my phone and take a picture of her because it's a sweet moment. Her with my dogs looking up at birds. She catches me out of the corner of her eye, and she's furious. One of my boundaries is I don't like having my picture taken without permission. She takes my phone, deletes the picture, and tells me never to do it again. Now I'm starting to feel something's off, because this isn't normal. This is control again. And the escalation, taking my phone, deleting my photos, that's crossing me boundaries while lecturing me about hers. But I let it go. I made excuses. She's just private. She has a thing about images, whatever. What I should have recognized, she was establishing dominance. Every boundary was a test of whether I'd comply. And every time I complied, I was training myself to defer to her arbitrary rules. Hashtag red flag 3, the rage over editing photos. Later, we attend an event at the Kennedy Center. Academic conference, her favorite author speaking. She wants pictures now. I take photos of her, of us, together. I edit them later. I do photography. I shoot in raw format. I color correct afterward. Standard practice. I increase the saturation slightly to make the images pop. She sees the edited photos and loses her mind, furious that I changed. Her images, screaming at me about how I violated her vision, how I didn't respect her, how dare I alter photos of her without permission. Her adult children are arriving for dinner that evening. We're in the middle of this fight when they show up, and she flips a switch. Suddenly everything's fine, we're a happy couple, she's clinging to my arm affectionately. I felt like I was performing for her children. It was bizarre, unsettling, wrong. What I should have recognized, this is narcissistic behavior. The rage over trivial things. The ability to switch personas instantly when an audience appears. The need to control even minor aspects of how she's perceived. This was showing me exactly who she was, and I was ignoring it because I didn't want to see it. Hashtag red flag 4, the stories about her. Narcissistic ex, one night we're lying in bed. No sex because she's punishing me for some minor violation, and she's telling me about her ex-husband. He was a crazy narcissist, manipulative, gaslighting, controlling, horrible person. Oh, and by the way, he's the general counsel for a Fortune 50 company, extremely successful, paying her 6 figures annually in alimony. As I'm listening to her describe this man, who clearly isn't a dummy if he's achieved that level of professional success, I start wondering if every ex was a narcissist, if everyone she's ever been with was terrible, what's the common denominator? What I should have recognized, when someone tells you everyone else was the problem, they're telling you that they are the problem. The narcissist wasn't him, it was her. And she was about to do to me exactly what she did to him. Hashtag red flag 5, the explosion over nothing. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning. She'd stayed over Friday night. I had clients early Saturday. I'm up at 7 a.m. working. I have a cancellation around 10 a.m. I go upstairs with coffee. She's still in bed. She'd always been enthusiastic about sex. Had always told me to take her whenever I wanted. So I get into bed with her, start being affectionate. And she explodes. Jumps out of bed screaming at me, calling me selfish. Berating me for waking her up, for assuming she'd want sex, for being inconsiderate. That's when I knew this woman was turning my peaceful life into chaos. No amount of sexual chemistry or intellectual compatibility or anything else was worth what she was doing to my peace. Hashtag what I was actually attracted to, and why it wasn't real. Here's the hard truth I had to face. She didn't possess the qualities I was attracted to. I had those qualities in my head, and I projected them onto her. I was attracted to depth and intelligence, shared values and worldview, emotional maturity and stability, bohemian, free-spirited authenticity, sexual compatibility and genuine desire what she actually was, educated but emotionally unstable, controlling and rigid despite bohemian aesthetic, narcissistic with rage problems, weaponizing, boundaries to establish dominance, using sex as leverage and punishment. The woman I was attracted to didn't exist. She was a projection of an archetype from my youth combined with qualities I wanted her to have. I fell in love with my own fantasy and dressed it in her appearance. This is what Shakespeare was warning about. Love, or more accurately, attraction, doesn't see reality. It sees what the mind wants to see. Cupid is painted blind because desire makes you blind to what's actually in front of you. And the Greek myth of Narcissus captures the same truth. Narcissus doesn't fall in love with his reflection. He falls in love with what he thinks his reflection represents. Perfection, beauty, someone worthy of love. He's projecting meaning onto an image, and it destroys him. You cannot fall in love with a projection, but men do it constantly, and it destroys them. Hashtag why men are particularly vulnerable to projection. Men are uniquely susceptible to this trap for several reasons. Visual attraction triggers projection immediately. Men are wired to respond intensely to visual stimuli. A woman who fits a certain aesthetic template triggers attraction so strong it bypasses rational assessment. And once that attraction is triggered, the mind starts generating narratives about who she must be based on how she looks. Men want to believe in the fantasy. After divorce, after years in a dead bedroom, after feeling unwanted, finding a woman who seems perfect is such powerful wish fulfillment that men don't want to question it. They want to believe they've finally found what they were looking for. Sex creates bonding that overrides warning signs. Once sexual intimacy begins, especially if it's intense, men's brains release bonding chemicals that make them far less critical of the woman they're with. The sex is so good, the validation feels so strong, that red flags get minimized or explained away. Ego needs validation more than truth. The divorced man trying to prove he's still valuable doesn't want to hear that the woman he's attracted to is actually a nightmare, because that would mean he's failing again, choosing poorly again, not as good at this as he thought. Ego will twist reality to preserve the narrative that he's succeeding. This makes projection almost inevitable for post-divorce men. You're operating from need, not abundance. You're vulnerable to validation. You're hormonally bonded through sex. You're seeing what you want to see because seeing the truth would be too painful. Hashtag how to protect yourself from projection. So how do you avoid falling into this trap? How do you distinguish between genuine compatibility and projection? Hashtag recognize that attraction is just attraction. Nothing more. Physical attraction tells you nothing about a woman's character, her compatibility with you, or whether she'll be good for your life. It's a biological response. That's it. When you see a beautiful woman and feel that pull, recognize this is my biology responding to visual stimuli. It's not telling me anything meaningful about who she is or whether I should pursue her. Attraction is necessary but not sufficient. You need it for sexual chemistry. But it's not evidence of anything beyond, she looks good to me. Hashtag observe behavior, not potential. Watch what she actually does, how she actually treats you, how she actually handles conflict and stress and minor inconveniences. Don't project better behavior onto her based on what you want her to be capable of. Don't make excuses, she's just having a bad day, or she's stressed right now, or I'm sure she'll grow out of this. People show you who they are through consistent patterns of behavior. Believe them the first time. Hashtag screen out drama. Early, the moment you see disproportionate emotional reactions to minor things, you exit immediately. No second chances, no benefit of the doubt. Someone who rages over you editing a photo is someone who will rage over everything for the rest of the time you're with her. That's not fixable. That's her character. Exit before you're more invested. Hashtag don't confuse good sex with good character. Sexual chemistry is powerful. It creates bonding. It feels like evidence of deep compatibility. It's not. A woman can be sexually enthusiastic and still be a nightmare in every other domain. Don't let good sex override clear evidence that her character is broken. Hashtag give it time before committing. Don't move quickly. Don't move in together. Don't make promises. Don't integrate lives. Keep distance for at least 6 to 12 months. Watch how she behaves when she's stressed, when she doesn't get her way, when things aren't perfect. The mask eventually slips. Give it time to slip before you're legally or financially entangled. Hashtag maintain your life independent of her. Don't sacrifice your peace, your routines, your friendships, your purposes for any woman, especially when you just met. If being with her disrupts your peace, she's not right for you, regardless of how attracted you are. Peace is not negotiable. Hashtag the relief of ending it after several months together. Intense, tight, consuming, I ended it. And the relief was immediate and profound. She blew up my phone. Texts, calls, begging me to reconsider, reminding me of commitments I'd made, concerts we were supposed to attend, trips we were planning, trying to guilt me into staying through obligations I'd agreed to when I thought she was someone different. I held firm. I was done. Her behavior was so far outside what I was willing to tolerate that no amount of history or sexual chemistry could justify continuing. And getting back to normal, to my peaceful, stable, autonomous life, was one of the best feelings I've experienced. Because for 3 months, she was like a whirlwind that blew through my life and disrupted everything. And removing that disruption, returning to stability, that was worth more than anything she was offering. Hashtag final thoughts. Attraction is blind. Shakespeare told us this. The Greeks told us this through Narcissus. Every wisdom tradition warns about confusing desire with reality, and yet men continue falling into this trap. We project qualities onto women who trigger our attraction. We fall in love with fantasies dressed in attractive packaging. We ignore red flags because we want to believe the fantasy is real. The woman you're attracted to may not possess any of the qualities you think she has. Those qualities may be entirely your projection. What you want to see, what you need to believe, what fits the archetype she's triggering. And the gap between projection and reality is where relationships become toxic, where men waste months or years, where peace gets destroyed by chaos you invited in because you were too attracted to see clearly. Learn to separate attraction from assessment. Watch behavior. Screen out drama early. Don't move quickly. Maintain your peace as non-negotiable. And remember, bringing someone into your life is a massive decision that affects everything. When your life is going well, when you're stable, peaceful, purposeful, protect that fiercely. Don't let attraction to a projection destroy what you've built. Drop a comment if you've been through this. Did you project qualities onto someone who didn't possess them? What were the warning signs you ignored? Subscribe because this channel will continue providing the hard truths that protect you from mistakes that cost years to recover from. Stay healthy, stay clear-eyed, and if you can, stay single until you're choosing from strength rather than need.